been living a lonely life. I've been sleeping here instead. I've been sleeping in my bed. Sleeping in my bed. So show me family, or the blood that I would bleed. I don't know where I belong.
Hold on a second here.
I don't know where I went wrong.
Desert Gold here. Boy, you caught me with a big old mess going on here. Yeah, let's see if I can get cleaned up and we'll get back to what I was originally intending to do. Was doing some surgery on a Goal Zero Escape 150 power supply here. Goal Zero, and that is some cool stuff with solar rechargeable power sources. Sometimes though they do go south on you. I was trying to see if I could get the down low on the battery here, but we'll see that on a different situation here. What we're going to do today is get back to the finish of my gel test on the 10 versus 9mm, the bone test, and then the 45s that I did. So let me get cleaned up a little bit here, rearrange the block so we get some decent views of it, and then we'll see if we can get anything out of it. All right, see if we can get anything out of this. I'm going to try and keep this shorter, obviously, than I've been doing in the past, but I get into these situations and there's so many things that catch my eye that I tend to get carried away, so I'll try and keep it short. As you saw in my first video, the first shot fired on the 45 side was the Hornady FPD that is this top track right here. Okay, and as you can see, it entered there and exited there. You'll see some other entries and exits here. Basically what happened was I wanted to see if that was a freak of or an anomaly of this situation, or if that was a common occurrence for that round. And as you can see, I fired 1, 2, 3, and the original one, 4 rounds, all 4 started there and exited the backside of the block. So 200 grain FPD is definitely a penetrator. The interesting thing that I wanted to see if I can get a little closer in here. You see these dots in the gel here, there's that, there's a copper, there's that, up in top here, you can see there's one there, couple right there. I'll bring the camera in on top. You'll get some better view of some of these pieces of the core that just kind of exploded out when this bullet started to expand. It's going to continue to be a debate whether, you know, jacket separation or, you know, the bullet leaving parts behind is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to get into that. Just my personal opinion is that the more retained weight that hits the target and stays in the target at a given velocity will create the largest amount of force. Okay, so in the background, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. more without just like creating havoc and blurriness here. You can see I did again fire one of the Grizzly Xtreme 45s, 175, and oh, getting back to all of the Hornady FPDs were 200 grains, so the 175, and then you got your Hornadys leaving the premises at 200 grains. So then basically what we have left is the Winchesters. I have one right there and one right above it a little further down the path. Both 230 grain Talon series on the Winchester Ranger series. In my opinion, probably one of the most devastating hard-hitting rounds that you could probably put in a 45. That's my personal opinion, and I'm sure I'll probably get some arguments on it. I'll dig these out later, but both rounds expanded beautifully and decided to display their talons with perfect form. Right behind this Winchester, you have your HST, also a 230 grain. It did not fragment or shed any of its jacket, so it maintained almost all of its body weight, maintained all of its total or beginning weight. I do see, however, as I'm looking closer, and you're probably not going to be able to see it, that there is some core fragments around that shot. What I'm going to do right now is bring the camera above and see if the view from above shows you any better visualization on the damage path and final destination of all of these rounds. Give me 1 second. All right, so this is a view from the top. You can see the entry trails, and this top one, oh, okay, I know. In the time it took me to set up, reorient the camera for the top view, I misplaced my pointer. So you guys are gonna have to deal with my little back scratcher. Anyway, you can see the top entry point for the Hornady FPD, and you can see the awesome expansion and damage path that the round created as it was expanding, and it just kept going and going. And here you can see some of the fragments of the core that I was talking about. There's some more, and then that's where it exited. Found my pointer. Alright, so right there we have the entry point down on the bottom there for the Winchester, one of the Winchester Ranger Ts. And it's hard to see, but it follows down and continues down there, and there you have a fully flowered talon. Right above it you'll see another talon that I had fired. It made it a little further down the path. Then down and down, right in. There you have your HST. Now, if you look at this further out, you'll see that all the 45s kind of basically grouped in the same kind of area as far as penetration. Given the expansion of the Talon series, I am kind of pleased, since that is my carry round for my 45, on its penetration. There's the end of the block right there. It outperformed the HST in this particular case anyway, as far as penetration. And definitely, I'm sure that when we do the expansion, or I'm sorry, the measurement on the expansion, that just from visual point of view, these look much more devastating than the HST did. Just a quick glance here on the top path of the FPD Hornady. As it started to expand, you can see the first signs of core degradation. You see a particle there, and as we move further down, there's a couple right there. Now you can see the damage path is quite substantial there. I want to say it's probably almost an inch at this point right there. And as it continued to expand, it started shedding some of its core. There's another piece there, and another piece there, and on out the block. Alright, as you can see, both rounds, the Federal on the left and the Winchester on the right, opened to their company's desired expansion points. The Federal, as you can see, has a nice flowery core opening, classic HST. And then, as you can see, the more violent Talon. Let me just tell you, digging that out of the block was a challenge. This thing has some sharp petals on it. Both maintained exactly what I would call perfect weight retention. The HST at 229.9 and the Winchester at 230.2. Pretty much classic expansion on these. I'll get you some measurements real quick and then we'll finish this off. Alright, the Federal HST at its widest point. Looks like it's coming in at 0.827 and it's averaging about 7.49 at its smallest. And the Talon is going to be tricky to measure. At its widest, 1.002. And then if you get off the Talon, you're at 0.802. I mean, that's not at the 0.802, but if you go to the tips of these Talons, it goes over an inch. So definitely some extreme expansion with just a standard 45 ACP round. Alright, everybody, just actually loading my gun. I showed you in the past my H&K USP Tactical with the Osprey suppressor on it. I think it's actually an excellent choice, provided the proper ammunition are loaded into your magazine. And after today's, or I should say last week's, test firings with these different 45 rounds, kind of decided on what I am going to have in the magazine for my home defense. This, as you saw earlier, is the Federal HST. This is the Winchester Talon, and this is the Grizzly Xtreme. Now, while penetration is a very, very important concern with self-defense and home defense, with regard to home defense, over-penetration can be a detrimental aspect of your choice of rounds. So with that in mind, the Hornady TAP FPDs, every single one of them penetrated the 16-inch block. This round had the highest velocity in the group, averaging about 1070, or I'm sorry, 1065. Federal and Winchester were, well, Federal was in the 950 feet per second, and Winchester 985. Grizzly Xtreme advertises 1,200 feet per second. It's never even come close to that. It's around 1,100. Now, with that being said, in a home defense situation, I want to inflict as much damage on the assailant as possible without running the risk of over-penetration. So that left the FPD out. That with respect to the fact that it just, even without any barriers in the gel, it was breaking apart and disintegrating as far as the core was concerned. I am going to follow up with this test in a later date with more test firings of that Hornady TAP. I'm not putting it down in any way. I think it's a marvelous round. I just want to be able to evaluate the end result. So what we're going to be doing is putting a second block behind it, make sure we catch the final product and evaluate what's actually left after the firing. So you have a 200 grain going over 1,000 feet per second, penetrating over 16 inches. Home defense, I don't see that as, in my opinion, practical. Now the Winchester, on the other hand, given the size of that expansion and the obvious carnage that those talons would produce, would keep it from over-penetrating and create a lot of internal damage to organs and blood vessels. I like that. As we've seen a number of times, the Grizzly Xtreme has unparalleled expansion to the point where it gives up penetration. We looked at about an average of about 9 to 10 inches expansion on the Grizzly Xtreme. Definitely not what you would want to load your entire magazine with, but if you have a few of these dispersed amongst other higher penetrating rounds, it would be a very devastating end result. With that being said, my choice is I am loading my home defense magazine with Winchester Talons and dispersing a few rounds of the Grizzly Xtreme amongst the Winchester Talons. So you're looking at penetration averaged about 12 to 13 inches on the Winchester, 8 to 10 on this. Massive damage and expansion on both rounds. Excellent, in my opinion, an excellent choice for home defense. Restricted over penetration and devastating, to say the least, final results. Hopefully you got something out of this. Going to be continuing on with more gel tests on different rounds. If you have any ideas or requests, let me know or comment, and I'll see if I can put it together for you. This is Desert Gold out. Have a good day. Be safe.